to hand this off to a bunch of mensches on this panel. If you don't know that word, it means
It
really.
means you're not from New York.
It means you're really great. Rick Mandler is the moderator, and all of these people are incredibly talented, smart, experienced. You might know them. And Rick stepped in for Tim Hanlon, who couldn't make it from Chicago, but he stepped in at like midnight or 1 in the morning.
No.
I don't remember.
Only
Thank you
11.
very much.
Okay, so hi, I'm Rick Mandler from ABC. I am not Tim Hanlon, but I do play him on TV tomorrow. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves. 3 sentences, no more. I was just at a conference where we had to introduce ourselves by haiku, so I'm not going that far. But everybody gets 3 sentences to introduce themselves and what they do. So we'll start.
I'm going to try to make some really long sentences.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hi, I'm Christophe Gillette. I am the head of product for a new initiative at Adapt TV focused on programmatic TV, essentially building a platform, a data-driven programmatic platform at Adapt TV. Prior to that, I was head of product for a company called Fan TV, formerly Fanhattan, where I was building a cross-screen discovery solution for movies and TV shows. We launched at All Things D in 2011. So I've been working in the TV industry for about 6 years.
That's your third.
And then I'm done. Okay.
And I'm Matt Bayer. I work over at Magna leading their advanced TV practice. What that includes is anything programmatic, automation, interactive TV, addressable, and driving a holistic approach to video, working across all IPG media brands clients. So,
I'm Chris Pizzurro from a company called Canoe. We are an advertising technology company selling software and services to national programmers. Our current main product is to do dynamic ad insertion into a VOD stream on a set-top box.
I'm Walt Horstman. I'm the general manager of Audience Express. We are a programmatic TV platform where we aggregate inventory and automate the workflow across multiple inventory providers and then apply audience data to those campaigns in order to optimize the campaign throughout their life.
I'm Jane Clark. I'm the managing director of the Coalition for Innovative Media Measurement, which is a group of 22 large TV video-based media companies, media buying agencies. This is actually really hard to look around here. And some large advertisers who are working to innovate, particularly in cross-platform measurement and also in the use of return path data and how it can be used to improve television measurement.
Okay. All right, Matt, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you. There's been a big push in the industry towards automation and programmatic. Sometimes the two are viewed as one, sometimes they're viewed distinctly. So I guess my first question to you is there a difference between automation and programmatic? And if so, what is that difference?
yeah, sure. So automation, how we look at it is automation's the overarching mindset of using data and technology to, frankly, plan and buy media smarter and more targeted. And programmatic is a function of automation. So I would say automation is that whole data-driven technology leveraging concept, and then programmatic is a tool to get to automation, and then there's also the automation of just buying processes. So, so I was a buyer at Cara for 9 years, and I spent ungodly amount of hours mixing plans and posting out plans that every assistant buyer does in this industry, and leveraging technology to
And you
kind
don't
of.
want to do that anymore.
No, I mean it's totally fine, but I think there's just a more smarter, efficient way to do it, and we kind of need to move the industry in that direction.
Okay. And do you think that smarter, more efficient way to do it will involve television advertising? Maybe I'll throw that one to you, Christophe. Do you see programmatic and automation coming to the planning and buying of television?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think the future is cross-screen, right? Being able to plan cross-screen with rich data is one of the most important initiatives in television. So having that efficiency and the data that goes across all those screens, I think, is one of the most important things.
Okay. And so, Chris, that kind of comes to something that you were talking about. In order to be able to manage cross-platform, cross-screen inventory, you need to be able to insert ads cross-screen. So what is Canoe doing with dynamic ad insertion?
So right now we work on behalf of the national programmers. So what we're doing is early on to be able to insert an ad into video streams on the set-top box that just currently hasn't been able to be monetized because it's been a difficult process. So we just make it easier to dynamically insert the ads in. So from Canoe's perspective first thing is to be able to get that technology down at scale so that you can just early on be able to monetize those impressions that are out there. We've built a system that is open-ended. It's using Cable Lab spec so that we can easily work with our MSO partners or MVPDs to be able to grow the footprint easily. And going up to the programmers, we make that an open architecture also so that the programmers can use whatever tools, software they want to. And then as it relates to the buying side, if the programmer wants to then pass through electronically up to some sort of programmatic buying at the agency, we're open to that. So we really built this open architecture. But for us in early days is the ability to just insert an ad, get it out at scale with really what's there today.
So, Chris, you have a little news to share, don't you?
I do have a little news today.
So, I don't know.
Rick knows about this little news.
I'm sorry to spoil it, but go ahead.
We are actually pleased to announce that Canoe is now working with ABC Network and with ABC Family, in addition to another independent VOD network called Sports School, but announcing today that those deals are done and that the technology will be rolling out in the coming weeks, and ABC and ABC Family will be open for business on video on demand dynamic ad insertion.
Press release to follow in an inbox near you. So, well, you guys are doing addressable advertising today in television.
No, just to clarify, so Audience Express is actually not addressable advertising. It is programmatic advertising. So we are working in traditional linear inventory. We aggregate across multiple inventory providers to be able to target by network and day part using audience data. And once addressability gets to a national scale, which is a requirement for all of the agencies and advertisers that we're working with, so once we reach that national scale, then we'll add it into the platform.
Okay, so I think there's a semantic clarification that would be worth doing for our listeners. Because when you said targeting by audience and day part, I always thought that was addressable, but I take it that you have a more finely honed definition of what addressable is.
Well, when we say targeting, we're targeting based on the viewership characteristics. So, for example, we did a campaign with Matt earlier in the year where we were looking for men 18 to 34 who were active video gamers. So using a series of audience data, we were able to look at viewership by different networks and day parts to find those areas where video gamers heavily over-indexed. And a lot of this will actually confirm what is the conventional wisdom. So traditional networks and day parts actually do show up. But then there is a process of discovery whereby we find counterintuitive areas of the TV landscape where that audience can be found. And that's how we target. And then we post out against impressions based on Nielsen, age and gender, as well as the impressions delivered against that specific audience segment.
Okay. So Jane, in this new world where everything is being dynamically ad served, where buyers are looking at targets beyond just traditional demos, where a zillion different platforms could roll up into one buy, how do we measure it? And does traditional TV measurement even apply in that world?
Good question. It's a developing situation, and what Sim works on is trying to come up with these tools to measure across all these platforms. And I would say that we've learned a bunch of things through the kinds of pilot tests and experiments that we've been doing with a number of different vendors over the last few years. And one of the main things we've learned is that the traditional samples are going to be too small for all of this, and they aren't going to work. And you're going to have to be combining census measurement, like you do in digital, with panel-based or other types of audience, behavioral data, other sources of audience-type data, to put this all together in these kind of hybrid measurement solutions. The tricky parts to it are that you're probably going to have to be measuring individuals as well as households, because you need to deduplicate this across all the platforms. You have to pretty soon start dividing content measurement from ad measurement, because it's very difficult to add together something like a C3 rating currently in television, which is just the minutes that have commercials in a show, with the digital impressions. And the last thing is that SIM's been advocating for a better method of content and ad identification, using registries, Ad ID for ads and Entertainment ID registry for content, which will then have everybody in the ecosystem calling the files the same names as they're going across all of these, different systems. There are some solutions coming to the market this year in 2014. So I think we've been in a situation where people keep complaining that we don't have all the measurement, but ComScore, Nielsen, others are actually coming to the market with solutions that SIM is hoping to help to push forward in a pilot test in the next year.
Okay. All right, I want to move to the buzzword du jour, big data. I'm going to read a quote. This is like my favorite quote about big data. It's from Dan Arley. How many people have heard it? Oh, good. Or how many people have been listening to me? Never mind. Thank you. Somebody put his hand up. So here's the quote. Big data is like teenage sex. See, I said sex. Everybody picked their head up. Everyone talks about it. Nobody knows how to do it. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it. So everyone claims that they're doing it too. So is that fair? One. Two, okay, if it's unfair, what is big data? And three, what does it mean in the context of the media business? And I'll throw it out to all of you. Who wants to take the first crack at that?
Take a first shot is, yes, I do think big data exists. I do think that, does it exist in media is probably the sub-question of that, right? It certainly exists in airline reservations and, you name a whole bunch of other industries where, big data people like IBM play, and they've done some real interesting work that's there. As far as media, there are folks who are collecting a bunch of data on the social side and all of that. As far as Canoe is concerned, we're building from the ground up, and actually play off something that Jane said, is that we capture an ad impression at the first frame of when the ad plays in play mode. So now that we've surpassed over 2 billion insertions over the last year, you start to see Canoe's concerned about big data in our world is those impressions start to add up a lot. So even companies like ours is where we are working now with outside services, because it gets to the point where, we can't handle big data with small servers. So in our case, it's real. It's starting to happen. Just playing off of what Jane said in terms of...
Did you answer my question, though? What is big data?
I could kind of...
Yeah, sure. Well, I was just going to say, it's collection of the data, but more importantly, it is utilization of that data.
Okay.
Right? Collection's fine, but if it collects and you don't do anything with it, then it's a nice science experiment.
Okay. Matt, did you want to add? Or...
Go ahead. I was just going to say the research community's always had data. So we had qualitative and quantitative data. Qualitative data was one-on-one and focus groups, and quantitative data was surveys. But now all of a sudden you have all this data coming from servers, from digital servers. You have data coming from set-top boxes. So all of these data and the analytics that go along with it, it's a whole new set of skills that these marketing science and other statisticians are able to, you need those kinds of skills to be able to work with that kind of data. So that's what it is. It's just an expansion of the amount of data that's always been available in a sample way, but now it's available in a census way.
Okay, so I'll come to you in a second. If I hear you right, and it sounds like what you're saying is big data, the difference between sort of all the data we used to collect and the big data is that we don't have to make a choice anymore. It's so easy to collect it. Storage is so cheap. Processing power is so cheap that we just collect everything and start teasing it for the correlations and trying to, gain the insights. Whereas before we had to be more targeted in what we collected and limited, therefore, in what insights we could draw. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
People call it data exhaust.
Yeah, and to Chris's point, it's all about how we could apply that data, right? So I want to prove to Chrysler that they're going to sell more cars by X media plan, by driving a programmatic, a programmatic strategy. So it's all about using that data and driving business results to show that the agency side is doing right by our clients, and media is pushing business results, and that ABC inventory is pushing business results, and ABC VOD inventory is pushing business results. I think we're trying to almost redefine the value of what media is, and I think there's a lot of data that could help us get there. Of course, it's a long track to kind of sort through what is applicable, what's not, but I think at the end of the day, collectively, both the sales and buying community are just trying to prove that media works, and we kind of have a better idea of that 50% that actually works for our advertisers.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the big issue with big data is that we have to rationalize it properly, because now that we have so much data, whether it's from digital, whether it's from smart TVs or connected TVs, online and so forth, being able to make that data work through, I think we need TV data management platforms, which have been around, in the digital world, and I think we're starting to see those evolve in the television world, and being able to establish the data that can actually be applied to television with actually credibility, because there's so much data out there, especially in the online world. I think a lot of people who are used to working in the TV environment are actually highly suspect of that data. If you ever go on one of these sites and it says, not to bash anybody who's actually made some of their data collection available, but when you go on and you say, tell me what you think I am, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I own a cat, I own a dog, I do this, I do that. There's a lot of lack of credibility, I think, from some of that data, and we're going to have to rationalize it, establish credibility with it, make it easy to use in the TV world.
Okay. Chris, I want to pick up on something was just said. A TV data management platform. Do we need a TV data management platform? And if we do, what would it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is where things need to move. Everybody's discussing how they're using data to say, look, find an audience. And it's not something you can do with spreadsheets anymore because the data sets are getting too large. You need a platform to be able to measure and actually find that audience for you with just simple keystrokes versus using 18 different spreadsheets trying to use a VLOOKUP and all these other kind of things. So essentially, yes, you need to have a data management platform to join all these different data sets that are happening. There's a trend right now, too, that you're starting to see proprietary data come along. Everybody has their own data sets, and they want to activate that. And so there's a necessity to have a platform to activate all that data as well and join it with all this other big data that's kind of out there.
Okay. All right. I'm going to shift things a little bit now. The disadvantage of being the moderator is that I can't be my usual controversial self. Because I was originally, as the publisher representative on this panel, and I was planning on throwing as many bombs as I could. But now that I'm the moderator, it's really hard to do that. So we're going to use the following device, which is, this is now the section of the panel where we say, Rick, you're wrong. So I'd like to put forth a couple of propositions.
Rick, you're wrong.
Thank
Not
you.
yet?
Not yet. So I'm going to put forth a couple of propositions, and I think most of you guys will disagree with them. So feel free to start with, Rick, you're wrong, but please explain why. All right, so from the publisher's perspective, I listen to everything that you guys say, and I get a little antsy, a little nervous, for a couple of reasons. One, it does seem like I hear, programmatic and automation makes a lot of sense to me, right? We can automate the workflow that is more efficient for me, it's more efficient for the buyer and the seller, it's all good. Programmatic strikes me as a little more problematic because, at least as it stands today, there's an information asymmetry. The buyer has a bunch of proprietary analytics that they're applying to the impression in order to determine what the value of that impression is. The seller has no idea what the buyer's valuation is. In the TV world, we have the currency is transparent, right? We're buying on a demo. We all know what that demo is worth. There's relative balance of information. But in the programmatic space right now, there isn't balance of information. It's asymmetrical. The seller has all their the buyer has all their proprietary analytics at their disposal. So the only thing the seller can do is sort of set a floor. And it may be I set a floor, let's say I set a floor at a $20 CPM, and someone buys it at a $21 CPM, and I think, that's great. It's 5% above my target. I did really well. But what I didn't know was they actually valued that impression at a $40 CPM, and they're going home feeling like they got a great deal.
I'll jump in.
Okay, so
Rick, you're wrong.
Rick, you're wrong. Why? Why am I wrong about that?
This is an important issue, and when we were setting up Audience Express, we were thinking about exactly what is the right business model. And we decided that the right business model to make this work in programmatic for TV is that we have to be an SSP or a sell-side platform where, to that very point, with our inventory partners, and I can't get into a lot of the disclosure of how we do this, but we provide a great deal of transparency to them in terms of what is the value of their inventory in the marketplace, so that they understand, okay, I may have some of these long-tail networks that I don't think are worth that much, but when they go through the platform, they can see what the increased value of them is when we apply the audience data. So you're wrong, because it's all about setting up the right business arrangements so that the sellers are actually given a fair advantage in terms of transparency.
Okay.
I view that as, Rick, you're right, but I got your back.
Thank you. Matt, why am I wrong?
So I don't think you're right or wrong. I think
The middle ground. Come on.
So I think buyers have always used data and intelligence and the tools at their disposal to make buying decisions in a manual way. So I think programmatic it's really just taking those same concepts and making it more, manageable in a platform and leveraging technology. But I do think you're right that the business does need to move forward to a place where there is a great level of transparency, and the buy and sell side are both comfortable with whatever deals they do, whatever they set up. So I do 100% agree with you that there needs to be that level of transparency to make us both comfortable, because I think if you're putting inventory on a platform and you don't have control of it, which I want you to have control of it, I think that makes a lot of people nervous, and that's not a sustainable business moving forward. And that's not going to get us to where everybody wants to be, kind of proving that media still works to sell more cars and to sell more consumer electronics. So I do think you need that kind of control and transparency on both sides in order to move things forward.
Okay. All right, let me try another one that I'm sure I'm wrong about. People, I think there's sort of this sense of inevitability with dynamic ad insertion right down to linear. That one day we'll be delivering ads on an individual set-top box basis. And my instinct is that would be a really unfortunate occurrence for a publisher. Let me explain why. Right, so today, when someone's buying a television schedule, they're buying units, not impressions. And they have, you guys, when you were doing your media planning till all hours of the night, you were setting up reach and frequency objectives. And in order to get down into the third quintile of viewership, you had to buy, a certain amount of media, which meant that you were going to be way over delivering the first quintile in order to get down into that third quintile and hit your reach and frequency objectives overall. From a publisher's perspective, that waste, that overbuying of the first quintile, that's a great thing, right? We're getting paid for those impressions. In a dynamic ad inserted environment in linear, suddenly the first thing I'm going to hear from an agency like yours is, we need to frequency cap. You can't over-deliver that first quintile. And in a DAI environment, you can do that. Now I have to go back and resell that stuff, whereas before it was sold as part of the bundle of the unit. Am I wrong, or is that a negative trend for publishers? Nobody wants to take that one on, huh?
Well, it's a really in-depth answer that's required. I mean, you have to really look at the economics of the situation. It assumes that there are a lack of buyers in the space as well. So I think that you're going to get a lot more efficiency by doing that, right? You're going to get your people reaching the real audience that they want, which is great from the people actually selling the product itself. And I think overall it will balance itself out. You'll get more people coming in and actually wanting to hit the heavy TV viewers, because they still are a valuable target. And will it drop the CPM rates? I don't think so. I think that it will actually start increasing because things will be more valuable over time.
So you think I'm wrong because it doesn't take into account sourcing new demand to lay against that now available supply?
I think that's a
And that
portion.
you'll raise your price.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you're targeting the exact individual that you want, I mean, the current economic model takes into effect that there's waste, right? And so you know that there's waste right now, and so you're paying a lower CPM. But if you're targeting the exact person that you want, you are going to pay a higher rate.
Okay.
And media is always about bundling. So whether you frequency cap certain parts of the schedule, it'll still be bundled in as part of a combined campaign.
Across all platforms.
All right. All right. One more, because I think you kind of touched on it with your answer. There is this notion that if a publisher can provide specific targeting to a specific audience, that they can yield higher CPMs. And that makes sense logically, and it's really efficient for the buyer, right? Hit your target audience. But what about the audience that's left over that nobody has specifically targeted? All right, clearly, if I can, right now when I sell a unit, right, I'm delivering a chunk of adults 18 to 49. It may well be that some portion of those adults 18 to 49 are not in the market for a car, have low income profile, or in C and D counties, right? There's a million other criteria that make them not particularly attractive to a particular advertiser looking to target somebody. So have I created television remnant? And what assurances do I have, or I worry, let's put it this way, so you can say I'm wrong. I worry that the lift won't exceed the drag, that the lift I'll see in CPMs for the most valuable parts of my audience will not exceed the drag on the CPMs for what gets left over. Am I wrong to worry about that?
I think there's.
I know these are not easy.
I think there's a balance between, and I've lived in the addressable world for a while, and I've been pushing addressability for a long time, and I think there's a balance of program level addressability, so buying more of the middle or Modern Family based on data that I see for a specific client, because being in the middle just works better, and I'm gonna drive more business results. And then there's the targeted approach where I'm going to be buying Dish Network and DirecTV and Comcast VOD and that sort of household addressable inventory. So I think there's going to be a balance between program addressability and household addressability. And I think that's been going on for years. So buyers always had to make a decision. Am I buying a program for reach and for a huge rating, or for a composition of audience? So I think it's that same sort of principle applies to this kind of ecosystem, is that there's going to be a balance between buying the Super Bowl when it's on your network every 4 years and buying more targeted inventory.
I'm sorry.
too.
I wish ABC got
Sorry,
the Super Bowl.
ESPN.
They don't get the Super Bowl either.
So never mind.
And so, Rick, in there,
The American Music Awards.
There you go.
Yes, I think there's something to worry about there. And as a technology provider, Canoe is in charge of the dynamics of the marketplace. But what we can do and what we're doing is to, build the scale, back to our scale issue right now, right? I just want to build up the scale for dynamic ad insertion, and that we can even have this discussion. But the second part is on the back end and on reporting the impressions, and that's reliable. So basically that if you do need this transparency, as everyone said about, and as a technology provider, we want to make it that transparency is accurate. Hence the reason why for us that we're going through the MRC accreditation process, so that the Media Ratings Council says, okay, when Canoe says a dynamic ad impression is 1 = 1, that you all have the confidence to do that. So there is that underlying factor in there, is you don't want people making those sort of arbitrary decisions. You want them to be transparent and based on real factual information.
And Rick, if I could,
Please.
I think if this is on, I don't think you should be as concerned as you are, largely because television has a number of pockets of illiquidity. And that illiquidity is driven by the fact that the currency that we use, right, wrong, or indifferent, is a relatively small sample. So you have a lot of long-tail networks, certain day parts, which actually don't get the right credit that they should get. And so therefore, it's hard to know the true value of a lot of that inventory. And actually, a lot of it is actually hard to access. And so at the top of the discussion, we're talking a lot about the value of automation. When you can bring more automation, when you can reduce the cost of illiquidity by providing more information, audience data, better reporting viewership data onto that inventory, there are buyers who are interested in that. I think we make these assumptions that every buyer wants high-income people in prime time. And we're finding just in the 6 to 9 months that we've actually really started and ramping up, there are a lot of advertisers who are interested in lower income households, depending on the product that they're selling, interested in day parts outside of prime. So I think that making the whole process a lot easier allows new sources of demand to come in and actually use that inventory.
Okay.
Yeah.
That really speaks to your automation point, right?
And we actually see for a lot of clients, overnight and late night is their prime time. So, and that's consistent across a bunch of advertisers, and that kind of, and I think that's a telling sign. We're trying to put value in not a greater value, but a value on those type of insights, and use that to drive just smarter buying decisions beyond age, sex, demo.
Okay, all right. Another proposition on which I'm sure I'm wrong. My contention is that the creative, to a certain extent, is holding back the growth of multi-platform buying and selling, and in two respects. One is that it's very hard to build creative that leverages the power of the individual platforms because of such a balkanized world we live in, and so that we just default down to the lowest common denominator, which is a 30-second spot that's completely uninteractive or non-interactive. Two, even then, many of those spots that we make are not cleared for every distribution channel. So, for example, many of the spots that run on the ABC television network are not cleared for digital distribution. So my contention is that both in terms of the level of effort necessary to make creative that leverages the power of the individual platforms, plus the failure or the cost involved in clearing across all those platforms, is one of the big things that's holding back moving towards a multi-platform buying and selling world. Am I wrong? Or is this the one that I'm finally right on?
We always blame the creative.
Right, it's easy.
Well, for VOD, it's been easier now to get campaigns on video on demand on a set-top box because a lot of agencies just say, oh, I got my 30. I can regurgitate it. I either put it on ABC primetime or now I'm going to have it on ABC video on demand. That's easy. I'll do that. So in that respect, yes. But yeah, there's absolutely an issue. How does that translate to other platforms? But I contend that if the platform proves worthy, you'll see the creative change. Look at sports. Watch any sports on ESPN. And you'll see it would be a Peyton Manning commercial, a Victor Cruz commercial, right? There's specific creative on every sports pod. You'll see specific creative. Why? Because that platform or that segment of that platform has proven worthy to be able to make the investment there. So I think once the platform makes its case, then you'll see the creative migrate that way.
Yeah, I think you'll start seeing that. You'll start seeing, for addressable TV, for example, unique creative designed for that with unique hashtags or specific call-outs designed just for that platform. I think you'll also see probably mobile and tablet as tablet kind of as tablet consumption emerges. I think you might see different creative in those landscapes too. So I think the creative's going to come. I think to Chris's point, we have to prove to clients that that platform and that investment kind of works harder for them.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg situation. It doesn't mean, I mean, the technology has to be there in order for them to then, figure out the best way to use it.
I also think, there's two portions to the question too. There's the creating the creative itself and having them unique, but then you also mentioned there's also the operational efficiency of distributing across all the different platforms, which right now is a pain point. And so that's actually something we're currently working on, to be able to just have one creative, or if you want to have multiple, and then seamlessly distribute it across all those different platforms, which is not easy to do right now.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because I think that speaks directly to the challenge that I've described. Is it the idea that you would provide tools that an agency could use to be able to create once and publish to a zillion different platforms all at once?
Yeah, absolutely. There are points where you don't want to have the same creative running on each platform. Obviously, online, it's actionable. You can click through and go to a site. TV, you want to call numbers. It's a different platform, so you do want to have unique creatives per. But the ability to manage that in one platform seamlessly, I think, is really important. Because right now, it's very tedious. You go to different platforms, and each platform has their different nuances, and you have to have someone maintaining each one, and it becomes tedious. And at the end of the day, then you lose measurement across them all. So having one platform to do all of that is really where things need to move.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of other things that other factors. For example, if I give ABC one specific creative, and I say in kind of an OCR world where I'm putting out a 30-second spot and putting it on mobile, tablet, and then hopefully eventually smart TVs too. Both of our sides, our traffic folks, your traffic folks, need to kind of set parameters on how we insert those kind of things. So I think there's a lot of questions, but I think once we prove the validity to it, and that it's working harder for our client to have a specific creative for tablet and a specific experience for smart TV, I think it'll get there.
Okay. I think it's beyond argument to say, and maybe this will be our last one, that the most successful new media delivery platform out there right now is the DVR, right? Over 50% of homes now represents a significant percentage of total video consumption, right? Very successful platform. Yet, except for to the extent that playback occurs in the first 3 days and it gets rolled into Nielsen, otherwise content is non-monetizable on the DVR. Is that going to change anytime soon, and if so, how? And my contention, tell me I'm wrong, is that sadly it's not going to change anytime soon.
Rick, you're wrong.
Good.
I think it will change, and that comes down to pure consumer behavior in their pocketbook, which is always a major driving force in anything, meaning if you're paying $9.99 for your DVR today, a month, and eventually you can find whatever program you want on video on demand, or some other mechanism for that matter, for quote-unquote free or ad-supported, then I think you will start to see DVR penetration drop if I can get the same experience or close to the same experience somewhere else cheaper.
So I want to see if I want to make sure I understand you, Chris. So there could be some sort of cloud-based, server-based, head-end-based solution that provides a consumer with pretty much all the content that they would get if they had made the effort to record it on their DVR, but it's a free service as opposed to a DVR, which is a paid service?
Correct. And I don't care if it's on the box today or in the cloud or whatever it is, but it probably ends up, if you want all the content, need to be cloud-based or whatever. But yes, just that idea of why would I pay $9.99 if I can have close to the same experience somewhere else for free?
Yeah, and essentially I think what's going to happen is that ads are going to be produced that have, time frames in which they're valid, So, and basically, if you have ad ID and you're able to automate, and you're able to automate through the content side as well, that you'll have, an ad will have a set of instructions that it's, valid for a certain time period on certain platforms, and then you'll be able to monetize it that way. I mean, the only problem now is because there's a number of advertisers that don't want, especially retailers who just are concerned about after the C3 window, or it would be C7 now,
Right.
because the majority of the playback viewing is happening in the 7-day window, not in the 3-day window already.
Right.
So the only reason it's not happening is because there are a number of advertisers that have very timely ads that they don't want. They have to run right before the weekend, or they have to be in a certain that C3 window is acceptable. But if you were, with technology, we'll be able to, basically have that available on demand at a particular time period.
Okay, so I want to pick up on something that the two of you just said. Maybe this is sort of our last point, which is, okay, so in VOD, let's use ABC, right? So in ABC VOD, fast forward is disabled. You can't fast forward through the ads. On the iPad application, same thing, can't fast forward through the ads. On abc.com, on the iPhone application, on all of our Android devices, you get the idea. You can't fast forward through the ads. On the DVR, you can fast forward through the ads. In the world that you sort of described, Chris, where you have a cloud-based solution or some kind of VOD-like solution for free, do you think that will be an extension of these existing platforms where you can't fast forward through the ads? Or is it going to be like the DVR where you can fast forward through the ads?
So I think the marketplace will play itself out. But to the first part of your question, it exists today. Either I can pay HBO to watch a movie without commercials, or I can watch it on TBS with more than one commercial. Again, consumer choice, and I think if the same movies are available for free, that a certain amount of consumers are going to choose free.
And didn't we see a report that just came out this week that said because of all the alternative viewing channels, whether it was over the top or VOD, that actually DVR penetration has started to decline for the first time? So I think that given alternatives, people will shift to these other formats. And I think we've always overstated the value of the DVR, which is ad skipping. When we've looked at multiple research reports, people really enjoy the convenience factor more than the ad skipping part of it. And so if we move over to more of a cloud-based VOD system, which does have ads in it that can't be skipped, I think the consumer is going to be fine with that.
So I'm going to close. I think that's brilliant. I'm going to close with that. I think that's absolutely right, that if we offer the consumer a choice between some monthly payments with a hard drive that they have to manage, but which they can fast forward through the ads on, or a free service that they don't have to manage, but the cost is they have to watch the ads, that there will be some amount of the marketplace that will pick the paid service to be able to skip the ads, but that the rest of the marketplace will pick the free service and watch the ads. And the greatest data point in support of that is HBO, which has had a fabulous programming run, but at the end of the day, they have never inched above 29 million, 30 million homes. So I think that tells you that there are limits to how much people are willing to pay for content, and that the ad-supported model is more robust, notwithstanding their protestations to the contrary. I'd like to thank all of our panelists. Please give them a great round of applause. They were great, and thank you very much.